We're going to be in Luke 6 this morning. I think you might be able to see the general outline of me. I can see those of you who are in the back. Those of you who are in the front are really in the darkness. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So far, so good. Outstanding. All right, now, just a little bit of a setup. We're going through Luke here at Eternal. And the passage we've got this morning is one of those quasi-familiar ones. We're really familiar with the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5. Luke writes the Beatitudes with a curveball. A little bit different sounding, but it's the same message. Now, the problem with these familiar passages is that because they're familiar, we think we understand them, so we often don't read them carefully. So this morning, in order to make sure that we look at this, what shall I call this? Radical passage. This is radical stuff. So that we pay attention, I'm going to read it, then I'm going to introduce it in its broader context, and then we're going to get out the tweezers and start picking at it, okay? So be patient with me. We're going to get to application in a few minutes, but we're going to look at the text carefully first. Luke chapter 6, I'm going to start reading at verse 27. Nope, excuse me. 17. Bearing in mind that in the 3-4 verses just before that, Jesus picked his 12 disciples. Okay? And he came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon, who came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all the crowd sought to touch him, for power came out from him and healed them all. And he lifted up his eyes on his disciples and said, Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, and revile you, and spurn your name as evil on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy. For behold, your reward is great in heaven. For so their fathers did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. Woe to you when all people speak well of you, for so their fathers did to the false prophet. But I say to you who hear, love your enemy, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. For if you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemy and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. I read that passage out loud one time in a men's Bible study that was full of young and old men, most of whom did not have Christian background. And one guy who didn't have a very good filter on his mouth said, "Wow, that can't be true. That can't be." If you look at that passage and take it literally, you're reading maybe the most radical stuff in all of Scripture. This turns everything in this world upside down. Now, I'm not going to preach politics this morning, but I am going to observe that we who are here are not, first of all, American. We who are here are, first of all, citizens of a different commonwealth governed by a king who dwells in a different capital. So when I speak this, I'm not speaking partisan parties, Republican, Democrat, American, European. I'm not talking that way. I'm talking as someone who represents this kingdom. And if this stuff is true, everything that's going on in Europe and America and South America and all around the world, and all the cabinets that are governed by presidents, in all of the military organizations that are governed by generals, all of those people, they all need to be turned upside down if they're going to understand this at all. So let me start by reminding you of Luke's perspective. Luke started in chapter 1 by telling us that he was writing to announce that a king had come. But then he went so carefully as to tell us, and by the way, he's a nobody, and he comes from nowhere. He comes from Nazareth. He comes from the backwater. His dad's a carpenter. His mother's probably a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades younger than his dad. And she was a virgin, and now she's pregnant and with child, and they're slouching toward a cattle shed to deliver the baby. You read that and you want to say, really? That's how the king makes his appearance? But not done there. Then in chapters 2 and 3, he tells us the very familiar Christmas story, right? But he frames it as being in Bethlehem, right down the road from the tallest building for 20 miles around, the Herodian, the 7-story mansion of Herod the Great, right in the shadows of the hills of Bethlehem. You had to walk under its shadow to get to where they were. So Jesus, this king, born from nobody, out of the backwoods of nowhere, goes under the shadow of Herod's palace, his summer retreat. And, oh, by the way, the angels announced that this was in the days of Caesar Augustus, whose birthday was always celebrated with a big military parade and signs all around his empire that announce, and we have evidence of that archaeologically, the birthday of the God will bring great tidings of great joy to all the peoples of the earth. Luke took a picture of it and wrote it in the text and said, they've got the wrong king. Now, who does that? And in your face to Caesar Augustus. But that's not all. Then in chapter 4, all of this is Luke's run up to where we are this morning. In chapter 4, Jesus goes to his own synagogue in Nazareth. He takes the scroll, Isaiah 61, which is the scroll that promises that Jubilee, you remember Jubilee? Any of you ever studied Jubilee? It's written about in Leviticus chapter 25. I mean, it was a hoot of a party. It was one of the Sabbaths. They had a lot of Sabbaths in the Old Testament because God always wanted to tell his people, I know you're restless. And I know there's no rest for the righteous in this world. But one day you're going to taste rest that you can't believe. So every week they got a day off. Nobody else in the ancient world did. And every 7 years, the land got a year off. It didn't have to produce crops. It could sleep. And every 7 cycles of 7 years, everything got a year off. Prisoners all went free. Debts all were canceled. Think about this. If you were a lender, you were out of luck. If you were a borrower, my word. If you were a dumb farmer that couldn't grow wheat and you lost your farm because you were so bad at farming, you got your farm back. If you accumulated a bunch of property from people who were in trouble so you could buy at a discount, in Jubilee, you had to give it all back permanently. Is it any wonder that Israel never kept Jubilee? It was insane. Jesus comes, goes to the synagogue of Nazareth, and he says, today, this is fulfilled in your hearing. I have come to give sight to the blind, hearing to the deaf, make the lame walk, set the prisoners free. I bring Jubilee. And the crowd said, oh, doth it bespeak well for our neighbor's kill? And then they tried to throw him off a cliff when they got him. That's the introduction to this passage. So what is he talking about in this passage? The first thing I want you to notice is that he really picks the wrong audience. This guy isn't speaking to a bunch of money donors, a bunch of billionaires who can write big checks. He's talking to the crowds that come from all around, even outside of Israel. People who are sick, people who are filled, who are controlled by unclean spirits, the demon possessed. He's down there in the dark places of the city. That's who he's talking to. It's the wrong audience. You want to get something done with a kingdom? You go to the money people. He didn't. Secondly, he builds the wrong team. Can you imagine his cabinet? His cabinet is made up of pretty bad fishermen from 75 miles away. Some of them were married. They had to leave their wives behind. They trudged around, didn't know what in the world was going on. There was a guy that did a doctorate in Israel not that many years ago in biblical studies, and he did an analysis of what it was like to be the disciple of a rabbi. And his first observation was the rabbi had mud on the back of his calf, and all the disciples had mud on the front of theirs. Because they just walked behind him all day long. And no matter what mud he kicked up from the puddle, It all landed on their legs because all they did all day long was walk behind him and ask him questions. And all he did all day long was answer their questions. That's what it was like to be the disciple of a rabbi. These guys hadn't even begun that yet. And you're going to build a kingdom around them? Yeah. But now let's look at the text carefully. And he lifted up his eyes on his disciple. Okay? He had been talking to the crowds. Now he's focused on his 12. I want you to notice that. This is not a sermon proclaimed to the world. This is a sermon proclaimed to his people. And I think there's a reason for that. I think he's giving them, as Jacob Collins said in a study session this week, he's giving them marching orders. But I'm old, so it's probably a couple of weeks ago when Robert Schuller was big in California. Actually, that was 4 decades ago. And Schuller's Crystal Cathedral was all over the TV waves, and he was publishing books and making money all over the place. And he wrote a book on this passage and on Matthew 5. You know what he called it? You remember that? Any of you older people remember that book? He called it The Be Happy Attitude. And he said, this is for everybody, whether you're a Christian or not. It's just good advice to give your attitude a tune-up. Stay humble. Don't be full of yourself. Be meek. Everything will work out in the end. May I tell you, that is not at all what Jesus is talking about. That's not even close. When Jesus says, blessed are you who are poor, he means it. He's talking to people who, the Greek word there is patochos, who are not only without money, but they're oppressed. They have nothing. They're weak. They have no voice. They have no vote. They're powerless. Probably they're part of the category of people living in Israel who came from somewhere else. They were what we would call undocumented aliens. They were part of a team, but they had nothing to add to the mix. They were the people that in Deuteronomy God had said, I will know you have my heart when you love the poor. Because if you love the poor, you get what grace is. But if you only love people that can give you something back, you'll never understand grace. Then it's all a calculus exercise. Blessed are you who are poor. You run the kingdom of God. They had to be looking at him like he had been eating some bad food. You got to be kidding. He doesn't stop. Blessed are you who are hungry now. You'll be satisfied later. When he says hungry, he's not just talking about growling belly. He's talking about people who literally are craving, who are ravenous for food, who are ravenous for any of the basics of life and have absolute despair because they have no access to them. They go through life starved of riches, of wealth, of blessing, of food, of a roof over their head, of a blanket to cover them. They don't have anything. That's the word he uses. But he says, one day, you will be satisfied. Then he says, blessed are you who weep now. He's not just talking about people who have the ability to be empathetic. He's talking about people who wail, who cry their way through life because they have such despair and no hope of it ever going away. He's addressing this category of people that God had talked about in Deuteronomy 5 when he said to us, I'm going to know you have my heart when you care for the poor, the widow who doesn't get Social Security or a government check, the orphan who has no parents to turn to, the alien, or we would say the immigrant in the land who has no protected status, no legal status. If you're one of those people, my people are going to take care of you. And if my people don't take care of you, then my people don't have my heart. Now, one of the reasons that this is so radical for us is that most of us don't, every night before we go to bed, read Amos or the other minor prophets. Do you know why God scraped his people off the land and sent them into Babylonian captivity? Because they didn't do it. They were worried about making a profit off their investment. The rich ones had a lot of money. Amos talks about how the rich man would come home from business and his wife would be reclining on an ivory couch saying, "Bring me more wine." I mean, you can imagine it, can't you? It's like the rich housewives of wherever it is this month. They got to dress up. They got to lay around. They're always drinking, and they're always saying to their husband, "I want more, more. Bring me more." That's what Israel was like in the days of Amos, and God said, "I'm done with you people. You're out." In Second Chronicles, one of the last paragraphs of Second Chronicles, God said, "The sins of my people are so offensive to me. Their lack of care for the poor and the widow and the orphan and the alien is so offensive to me. They have polluted even the soil of my land. I'm going to get them out of here so that the land gets a break from their sinning. The dirt needs a Sabbath." Think about that. I mean, it's stunning how angry God gets when his people don't have heart like his. And when he's talking to these disciples, he's saying, "This is who you are." And just in case they missed it, he goes a little farther. Blessed are you. By the way, blessed. Blessed. You know what that word means? Oh, how happy you are. How filled with joy you are. You're so full of joy that your life can't stop blessing others. That's the word he's using here. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you. You're not on the invitation list. When they revile you, they make fun of you, they spurn you, they mock your faith. They say, "You're the problem in this land. If there were fewer people like you, we could all get a lot more done." I'm hearing a lot of that language from politicians across the Atlantic in Europe. I'm hearing that in West Germany and East Germany with this party or that one. I'm hearing that kind of language in our country. People with these kind of scrupulous morals who really care about the poor, the weak, and the orphan. You people, get out of the way. We got to get stuff done. You're in the way. You understand? I'm talking about the commonwealth of Christ here. I'm not taking partisan comment. Blessed are you when they deal with it. Rejoice in that they jump for joy. For behold, your reward is great in your king's capital city called heaven. Oh, he's still not done. But woe to you. You know what the Hebrew phrase for woe is? You'll love this. Oy vey. That's what woe is. Oy vey. Woe. Woe to you who are rich. Woe to you who are loaded, who have all the resources, the cars, the money, the houses, the great bed to sleep in. You can go wherever and you're never lacking it. Woe to you who are rich. You've already received your reward. Woe to you who are full now. There will come a day you're going to be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now. You go to parties and it's all laughter, it's all jokes, it's all fun. You've got everything you want. Woe to you who have everything at your disposal. There's coming a day you're going to mourn. Matthew goes to say, blessed are the people who know how to cry, who know how to despair, because that's all they know. My grandmother said to me when I was growing up next door to her, I'd slip over there to avoid my parents because I always thought grandma was going to be a little more generous with her cooking. Meanwhile, she was discipling this recalcitrant grandson of hers. He said to me one time, I'll never forget it. There was a kid on the street who was bullying a little girl. And my grandmother took a look at that boy and fixed a stare on him that made him jump on his bike and go away as fast as he could. You didn't mess with my grandmother. She turned to me and she said, there are times in life when it's appropriate to laugh. This isn't one of them. This is the time when we should cry with them. Blessed are those who mourn. She would have added at the right place in the story. But woe to you who go through life and you're seeing the world coming apart before your very eyes, and all you can do is laugh at the party. Woe to you. But there's going to come a day when you... Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How in the world does it work? You know, you're allowed to ask questions of the Bible like that when you're reading it, because some of the stuff in the Bible, it makes you scratch your head and it makes you say, really? Really? How does it work that the poor, the ones who are mourning, the ones who are living in despair, the ones who are weak and broke and have no one to turn to, how is it? Is this just psychobabble, Jesus? How good is that? Is this just psychology? Are you just trying to talk people into being happy? No. There's three reasons this is profound stuff. And I want you to understand. Number one, and I'm going to take you to three passages. Number one, Romans chapter 8. I said to you in the beginning, Jesus is talking to his people, the people who have hearts like God, right? The people he has chosen to be the new humanity for the new creation. And he's telling them who they really are. Listen to Romans 8, verses 16 and 17. He says, for all who are led, I'm going to go back to 14, all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. You received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. Listen, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirits that we are children of God. Isn't that wonderful? He's not done. And if children, then we are heirs of God. Isn't that great? He's not done. Heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ. Isn't that wonderful? He's not done. Provided we suffer with him in order that we may be glorified with him. Why must we suffer? Because it firms up our identity as being his kind of people. We're people whose identity is tied with this kingdom that is breaking into a world of power and wealth and military and billionaires. We're a different kind of people from a different kind of capital city, and we're establishing a different kind of a kingdom. We align with Jesus. We're like Jesus, the king who comes meek and lowly, riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey. He comes telling his disciples, don't you seek power. That's the way the Gentiles do it. If you want to work with me, you be humble. You be servants. You be even slaves of others. You are sons of God. You are children of God. You are brothers with Christ. So why did you identify even so far as suffering? That's heavy, isn't it? Second point, Philippians 1. Philippians 1. There's a method to Jesus' madness. Verse 27. Only I want you to let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel, so that whether I come and see you or I'm absent, I may hear of you that you're standing firm in one spirit, one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel. By the way, I love the way when Paul and Jesus addresses his people, he's always talking about you in the plural. Every single time. He's saying to you and me, eternal church, he's saying to us, you want to live a life worthy of me? You all have to help each other do this, because this is countercultural. We're living in a culture that always tells us it's in your best self-interest to do this. You'll get ahead, even if it hurts other people. No, not you. You are my disciple. You want to align with my method. You do this as a plural you. Now he gets to the kicker. And you're not frightened in anything by your opponent. This is your unity. The fact that eternal church, no matter what its current circumstance, no matter what you've been through, no matter how much hurt there's been and how many tears there are, you stick together as one people, helping each other live out the gospel of Jesus Christ with joy, no matter the circumstances. That is a sign to your opponents that they will be destroyed, you will be saved, and that from God. For it has been granted to you. It's been granted to you that for the sake of Christ, you should not only believe in him, but that you get to suffer for him. Just when you're ready to celebrate, kickers. I mean, it's all throughout the New Testament, people. This isn't a one-off. The Beatitudes aren't one-off. They're not weird. They're the pattern. You don't like that, I guess. They're the pattern by which we live our life. Why? What? How is it possible that if that's the pattern, that's the winning pattern? That doesn't seem to be the winning pattern. That seems to be a guaranteed loss. Now I get to get to do this. How is it possible that you are blessed, that you have the kingdom, that you will be full, that you will be victorious, that you will win? It's because we know the end of the story. Go back to Daniel chapter 2. You didn't expect that. Do you remember Nebuchadnezzar, the guy that took all the gold out of the temple, so that even after the exiles returned, and you would go into Jerusalem, even in the days of Jesus, and you would go to the temple, none of the original gold was there. Ark of the Covenant wasn't there. The golden menorah wasn't there. Nebuchadnezzar had taken it all. I don't know whether he melted it down or used the menorah in his bathroom for lights while he primped in the morning. I have no idea. But it wasn't there. It was all gone. So God comes to Nebuchadnezzar, having prepped Daniel by throwing him in exile, by testing him for 10 days, all the stuff, putting him in jail. So he comes out of jail, he's brought before the king. The jailer says, this guy can read dreams. Nebuchadnezzar says, great. I'm not going to tell them what the dream is. You tell me what the dream is, and then tell me what it means. And Daniel says, I can't, but God can. You remember the dream. Big statue. Kids here, what was the head of the statue made of? Gold. How about the chest? Come on, guys, silver. You gotta hang out with the prophets a little more often. Gold, silver, bronze, belly and thigh. Legs, what? Legs of iron and feet of what happens with clay when it gets dry? Yeah, dust, right? You're right over a dry lump of clay on the ground. You look in your rearview mirror and it's dust. Now, no, the key is all of those kinds of metal represent mighty human kingdom. You, Nebuchadnezzar, head of the Babylonian culture, empire, kingdom, you are the head of gold. After you. What do you mean after them? I'm going to live forever, no? No. After you comes the next one, silver, the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Great Darius the Mede, wonderful. After them, there will come another kingdom, the Greeks. After them will come another kingdom, Rome. Strong, iron, chariot, magnificent army. Nobody beats the Romans. The Romans ended up every victory in battle with a song that sang, Roma Victa, Rome wins. Nobody ever beat Rome. Until at the end of the Roman Empire, Rome was built out of clay, and the whole thing came crumbling down, right? Now, I'm going to read you from Daniel 2, starting at verse 44. And in the days of those kings, not Babylon, not Medes and Persians, not Greek, but the kings of the Roman Empire, in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. Nor shall its kingdom be left to another people. It will break in pieces all of those kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it will stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what will be after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation sure. How does it come? Luke 6. That's how it comes. It's not the powers, the billionaires, the cars and the houses and the military that invade other countries and take what they want because they can. That's not how the kingdom of God comes. Those kingdoms are going to be dust in a minute. This kingdom, the kingdom in which people celebrate not those values, but Jesus. Jesus' heart. God's grace. That kingdom has never been ended. You stand with me by faith, by value. You will never. There's been a passage that has been so powerful in my life in the last few years. I've been working on the book of Revelation, writing, trying to wrestle with the idea of the book of Revelation announcing that the Lamb has conquered. He has already been victorious. But trying to wrestle with that because it didn't look like it in the world around us. But you look at Ukraine, you look at Gaza, you look at the politicians' offices, whether they're in in Washington or Europe or South America, you look all around, you look on the streets, you look on the way people treat people that don't look like them, who talk different languages, who have different cultures. You wonder, what do you mean the Lamb has conquered? It looks like our sight is losing. And then 1 John 5, just kind of flooding back into my mind. Verse 4. 1 John 5, verse 4. Everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world. That's bold. And this is the victory that has overcome the world. Our faith. Who is it that overcomes the world except the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? The one promised in Daniel. Faith, we sang it as children in the Sunday school I went to. Faith is the victory. Not faith is the way you get to get it. You get to taste faith. No, 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 no. Not faith is the pathway toward victory. Not faith is a good thing when you're getting fun. No, faith is winning. Because faith aligns you with faith, assigns you Christ's powerful value. And faith identifies you as the children of God. When I got the call this morning that the lights were out, I thought, yeah, I don't think the devil wants this thing. This is radical stuff. But I want to tell you something, Eternal Church. If you believe that, if you hang on to that, no matter what the circumstances are in church life, in your family, in your job, you cling to that, nothing separates. Pray. Jesus, that's radical stuff. We're a little scared of it. It feels a lot more comfortable to try to win in the ways of the world that we live in. Most of us would prefer money to having none. Position and acceptance by our friends rather than being considered weird and being ostracized and uninvited at all the parties. We'd rather not suffer, thank you. But if that's what you want of us, to identify us with your Son and with his reign of grace and with his victorious victory, then so be it. Give us faith so that we can hang on to you with faith. Jesus said.